The first question would be like, imagine that you're taking a day off and then an employee of like your phone rings and an employee is calling you and is telling you, Mike, we have a problem. Before he gets a chance to tell you what's happening, what pops in your mind that could be the reasons he's calling you?
So the first thing, to be honest with you, in 10 and a half years, I've never taken a day off since having my employees. So that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say, what's likely to be a problem? Probably something related to inventory management. So it's pretty important for us to keep our stock levels across the different places where we sell. Make sure that that information is accurate. Some sort of issue in the warehouse because we do our own fulfillment, or probably an issue related to Amazon. We've been suspended from this, we've been suspended from that, we've been blocked from this, that type of thing, because it accounts for a large portion of our revenue.
Okay. And then second question would be, if you like don't show up at work one day, like how does it work? Do you have an office or like where most of the people are based or?
So post-COVID, it's a little bit different, but we have a warehouse. In the warehouse, there is an office. We congregate in that office somewhat regularly, maybe every 1 to 2 months. But these days, mostly I work from home.
Okay, and let's say that something completely unexpected takes you off the grid for 1 week.
Yeah.
Is there any reason for which your employees would be relieved? Like, is there something like, of course they would overall be worried and have problems, but would there be one thing that they're relieved of?
I mean, I have pretty high standards. And I think sometimes I drive them a little bit nuts with those. And to be honest, everyone's a little bit more relaxed when they know that their boss isn't around. Yeah. So I guess in that way that they would be relieved. I'm not sure.
Okay, then let's say that for 1 year the aliens, they kidnap you, and for 1 year you do not get to touch the company. How would the company drift? Like, you come back after 1 year, what changes would have taken place? So
people oftentimes accuse me of being an alien, so I'm not even sure if that's a hypothetical. That just might make sense. But how would the company drift? I get the sense that things would just be sloppier. There wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
I'm not extremely detail oriented, but there wouldn't be the same attention to detail. I think that integrity would slide. I'm pretty good about maintaining high levels of integrity and making sure that people do the right long-term thing. It'd probably be short-term, but a lot of my employees they don't have direct bonuses. So, there's no one like commission-based or something like that. So, given that there's no one commission-based, I'm not sure that there would be too much gaming of the systems in order to get short-term benefits. I don't know. Is that a good answer to your question?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Then another thing is like, if I worked in your company tomorrow, or like I got to talk with one of the employees, and I asked them like, what's the company's formula, or like, what are the key objectives of the company, like the key metrics? What do you think they would answer?
Honestly, they'd probably just be like, he may have sent us something. There might be something in Google Drive about that. There is, per one of the last chapters in your book, there is like a pretty prominent banner when you first walk into the company that sets out what the culture is. And we do have objectives for what we're trying to achieve, but I don't know how. I think the culture, in part because of that banner, is more in the heads of everyone who works at the company than the objectives are. The objectives are a little bit maybe more abstract to everyone.
Okay. And if I asked you this question to you, like, what are like the few metrics that you look at every week, or
the few metrics I look at every week?
Yes.
I don't look at the metrics weekly. I look at the metrics monthly.
Yeah.
The one weekly metric I look at is we use like Trello, which is kind of like task project management software. And it doesn't come across as like a data point, but I spend some time looking at like what output is of the individual people I manage. Monthly, even though we have like accounting set up and stuff like that, I don't end up looking at that much aggregate financial reporting. I mostly focus on per SKU. So we sell like hundreds of different products. I mostly focus on per SKU performance. How much are we spending on advertising for this particular product? What are the sales? Does it look like we should lower price, raise price, stuff like that? So profitability is big. Ad spend is maybe secondary. The profitability, pricing, ad spend are the big ones on a per SKU level.
Okay, then the last one is
small company, so because the company is small, like I don't really need to. Company only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
Yeah.
And because of that, like I don't need to look at that much aggregate data because I'm generally aware of basically the anecdotal things, right? Like I know that someone is spending $1,000 on a forklift.
Yeah. And the last question is, how do you like decide when you are, for example, adding a new product or considering adding a new product? Who are the people involved in it? Is it just you, or?
No. So whenever we're making a change, it depends on what type of product we're releasing or whether or not we're making a change, right? Anytime we're making a change, I'm pretty good about soliciting feedback from the people who actually do the process, because I've learned that even though I think I'm smart, like they're pretty smart too, and it helps to be doing the process every day to have a good sense of what needs to be done. Originally it was just me, and then it transitioned from me plus a designer plus the marketing manager, and we kind of like mutually agreed that for some of the products we were releasing in this one particular area, the marketing manager had it just kind of made more sense for her to be doing aggregate marketing, aggregate operations. She was better at that kind of stuff than picking which, in this case, stuffed animal we should be launching and stuff like that. So it mostly comes from me in conjunction with the designer these days. But I'm the idea man. Designer does most of the implementation.
Okay. And then you said that there are like 5 employees in your company. So, and what about so the warehouse operations, you're renting them, I guess?
Yeah.
And then you're having third operators like Amazon and I guess, so you're all out managing that. How do you think what do you think that's the level of effectiveness at which your team is running the operations, and compared to the same people, no bigger team, but if there were some different procedure or some different ways of working or more motivation and so on?
So the first thing I would say is that because we're a small team, a single person, and a life event for a single person can affect kind of motivation team wide. I mean, obviously, right? If you have 5 people and one person changes their motivation, that's 20% of the team.
Yes.
So it's a big deal. So your question is like how much better could like the motivation level be? How does like our motivation and the way that we work together compares against other companies in a similar space and similar size?
Yeah. Compared to like the best day that you ever had,
Yeah.
how's the average day? Like, is the average day like 60%, 80%, 20% compared to the best day that you had in the company?
I don't know, maybe 50 to 60%.
Okay.
It's hard for me to think about that without thinking about individual people.
Yeah.
Certain people over time have become more motivated, and then other people over time have become less motivated, and then
Yeah.
tomorrow someone comes back from maternity leave, so I'm not even sure.
Yes.
I mean, that's like a life-changing event, first child, so I don't know what we're going to see.
Yeah. No, okay. I was asking those 5 questions first, like just to get an idea of myself, or like what are like some possible topics that we can talk of, and
Mm-hmm.
also where like this talk might brings like better results. So uh, one thing that I think might be worth talking is like understanding like how you interface with your people. Like, so how do they know what they have to do, what they're supposed to do, what you expect them to do, apart from like the initial training and whatever you told them during the first couple of months?
Sure.
Afterwards, like, do you have meetings with them? Do you tell them? Do you have dashboards? Like, how does it work?
Sure. So it's going to change somewhat after reading your book, but I'll just tell you about
Yeah,
how it's been so far. So I guess Slack, just you know,
yeah,
chatting is one way. Those are for maybe smaller things. Trello, which is project management software for larger tasks. The occasional phone call when it seems like those first two options are going to be too difficult to communicate something. And then less and less in this time period, face to face,
yeah,
because COVID's made that kind of like difficult. And then how do they know for some tasks, there are processes in place, like do this, do this, do that. And then when we think that an improvement is justified, we change the process in order, we change the process. So,
yeah,
you know, so that's how we do things, I guess.
yeah,
And then I guess you could make the argument that you have like culture, right? You have like these are the principles of the company, and that guides things as well.
yeah. And like when you when you give an objective or a task to one of your employees, what are the chances that he misunderstands it, or that like he provides you some work, or he begins working on it, and then he thinks that he's working on what you asked him, and instead you wanted to tell him something else?
Varies by employee, but maybe like 20 to 30% of the time.
And how do you get to know that there is this like misunderstanding or misalignment or what, or gray area or whatever? Like, do they bring it to you asking questions? Do you ask questions to make sure that you were well understood, or does it just happen that you stumble on the wrong?
Uh, it depends because each employee kind of does things in a different way. You know, some people are less communicative. Some people don't even like to ask questions for whatever reason. Sometimes they ask questions. Sometimes I'm good about asking questions to confirm that there really is clarity as to what the objective is. And then sometimes it's just like I see a milestone, or the worst of all, I see the final work product, and it's, you know, it's just different from what I had in mind, I guess.
Yeah. And if I ask them like, if I ask to your employees like if they think that they are micromanaged or they think that you're not following them enough, or like where on the spectrum they would answer.
I mean, this is bad, but to be honest, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Sometimes I get the sense that they want more direction from me, and that sometimes I get the sense that they actually want me to tell them how to solve the problem,
Yeah.
which I don't like doing. And then other times I get the sense that they feel like I'm micromanaging or interfering with the process of them, resolving the issue.
Yeah. Well, for that, on this very specific thing, in my experience, when they ask you about to solve the problem, what they actually need is that you repeat what are the boundaries, so that like they have a clear idea of what's like the box in which they operate, so
Mm-hmm.
that if they come up with an idea, you won't they won't pass as like incompetent, or like they will get an answer as like it's completely not what I wanted, or so like kind of having like a picture of the boundaries usually.
So basically, what you're saying is that questions, even though they may seem like, what method do you want me to use to accomplish this, are oftentimes like, what are the rules of the game in order for me to succeed on this particular task, right? Am I understanding you?
Yes, like they both want, like depending also on the personality, they either want like some assurance that you actually want them to solve the problem, like to come up with a solution, that you're not like tricking them, like that you already, not tricking, but I mean, sorry, that was the wrong word. I mean that like that you already know the answer. So for some people
Well,
it's like,
usually I do know, sometimes I do know the answer. And I just, I don't want to go through all of the individual steps that are necessary. Like, for example, I've been doing this for a long time, and there are situations where maybe have a sense of what levers need to be pulled, and
mm,
what information specifically needs to be gotten.
yeah.
But I just don't want to go through all the headaches associated with gathering all the data, cleaning it, putting it together, and then drawing conclusions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to explain, like from the point of view, like of course I didn't speak with the exact employees of yours, but like the patterns that I've noticed is that they really don't. They either want to feel like you're asking the question and you do not have the answer, or that you're asking a question, you already have the answer, and they want to hear your answer. Because like if they hear that, like if they have the perception that you already have an answer which is, and you're asking them to have more freedom, but actually they do not have the freedom because you already decided the answer, then it kind of gets
Mm-hmm.
tricky for
Yeah.
them, and they enter like in defensive mode. So I'm not 100% sure that that's what's happening here, but it's just like there is some likelihood that that might be.
So I agree with you. I think that that is something that's happening. But how? So I guess, how do I address that? And let me give you a little bit of information. So I founded the company, right? So kind of like, it's not like I'm the CEO of a car company which was started 100 years ago. Like, not saying that I'm the level of Henry Ford, but like, I am Henry Ford for a small toy company. I started with like hand building this, and I was doing every single person's job at one point,
Oh, that's
right?
amazing.
So
Yeah.
each of the individual employees, I was doing that job at one point. So I do have a sense of how to do all those jobs. And in some cases, I've been doing those jobs longer than they have. So, like, what should I be doing? Should I be just like, I don't think I could get away with being like, I don't know how to solve this problem. It would seem like disingenuous,
No,
because
but
I
then
feel like
then
they think that I do, right?
yeah, then you can tell them like what you know, or you can tell them like some boundaries. Like if you know already like where they should look for data, or what you already done that worked, or
Yeah.
what you've already done and you know that shouldn't work, or even just telling them like sincerely, like I have already been doing this for longer time, so I have like pretty good
Yeah.
idea, but I'm open to see if there are new ways to do it.
Mhm.
And in this way, like they get the acknowledgement that you're actually asking a question that they can answer. But like,
What about being honest with them and just being
yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 that's,
like, hey, I have some sense of like how to do this, but like I don't want to do it, and it's your job, and like I've done it.
yeah,
Do you know what
that's
I mean?
perfect. That's perfect.
Okay,
I,
cool.
I think I think that is perfect. Like, of course, like saying it in like in
Yeah,
nicer
yeah,
manner, but I think it's perfect because like I think that a lot of people have like an innate skill to sense when they're put like in a minefield in a way. If it's like and but that all depends like on also how you frame the minefield, or like if you're telling them like what they're supposed to do, then they know that you're creating boundaries based on your experience for them, and then it becomes very fair play if you are forthcoming. But
okay,
yeah, I think that like the thing that you want to avoid is that they have the feeling that if they come with a wrong answer, then or like that you know things that you are not telling them, but they will be judged as if they were supposed to know them. Yeah,
right.
I think that that might be one thing.
It seems like you can distill some of these concepts into this clear establishment of rules. So, and then clear and fair enforcement of those rules, such that the output feels fair to the employee.
Hmm.
Is that right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like I can micromanage them and say like, okay, I want you to do this, this, and this, and this within reason, provided that I explain to them that like, hey, this is how it's going to be. And for this particular task, I mean, I'm going to be a micromanager. Whereas in a separate task where I'm not micromanaging them, I need to kind of say something like, hey, I really want you to figure this out on your own. And I've been through this a couple of times. So if you have questions, let me know. But I do want you to figure this out, and I don't want to give you a formula to make this happen.
Yeah,
Is that,
yeah, yeah, I think so. And I like very much that you use the word fairness, because I think that it's a lot about like avoiding that the employee thinks that he's treated unfairly.
right?
Because like I think that most of like the motivational losses that employees have, they come when they feel like they've been treated unfairly.
Hmm.
And usually that comes either because like the manager has not been clear, so they think that
Right,
they've been doing a good job. They honestly genuinely think it, but then the manager, he genuinely thinks that they didn't. And the problem was that there was this lack of clarity about expectations, or
right,
that they think that they are put in tricky positions in which every move that they do is wrong, and then
right.
they react wrongly. Yeah, that at least is like a pattern that I've seen in, yeah, in a lot of places.
What's kind of an example of a manager putting an employee into a tricky situation?
Well, I think that could be like if you're like withholding information and you're asking like, so one possibility could be like you're asking the employee to do a task that can only be satisfied in a specific way, but you're not telling them. either because the constraint comes from you or because it comes from, I don't know, some stakeholder or some regulation, or
Right.
you are giving a task which is necessarily difficult. I don't know, for example, like going to talk with, like trying to convince some external stakeholder in which necessarily you know that that a competent person will still not have like 90% chances of succeeding, telling them. So even if you yourself know that it's a task which necessarily not work, then of course, like in your mind, you will have like some middle parameters by which you decide whether he did it right or not. I'm giving you an example. Like, let's say that you're sending an employee to make some sale to a
I
company,
remember.
and you know that that sales is hard, and therefore you cannot part of the judgment, like good job, bad job, of course, will depend on whether he makes the sale or not. But then you
Right.
will also have part of your judgment based on whether he did some actions. I don't know, like, did he try to understand, to talk to the other decisions maker next to this person? Did he went in person and so on? So you already have some parameters on which you will judge him.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not telling them, and then you're judging him on these parameters, that's kind of putting him in a tricky situation.
Right.
So basically, it's about like thinking how you will evaluate his job. What are the implicit parameters that you will use? And then communicating them beforehand. I think that's part of the thing.
Okay. I think I understand what you're saying. And to me, if I'm just like trying to distill it into a concept
Yeah.
that's easy for me to remember, it's like getting in their head and then thinking about what would be fair. And
Correct.
also kind of like what would be reasonable, right? Like it, if there is like a single, if in my opinion, there's a single one way to do the task, it just seems stupid to not tell them that if you think that there's a pretty decent chance that they don't know it.
Yeah.
It's just like wasteful.
Yes. And of course, you can say it like not as in like I know everything, but you can say it as in like I've already been doing this for a few years. I've seen that
Yeah,
this is the best way. So unless like you have ideas that pop up like now, like you have some better ideas now, I think that
right.
we can agree that we are doing it this way. Something like that.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Cool.
Then another thing is like now I'm taking a specific example, for example, about costs. But I don't want to be like talking just about this, like you can generalize it later for uh, just think about like an employee that has some degree of impact on costs. I don't know, for example, your marketing manager, because I guess that you're spending like quite a sizable amount on advertisements and so on. Does this person, like, how do you talk to this person? Do you request him like to try to find areas in which like costs are spent inefficiently? Do you ask him for idea to lower the costs? Does he know this is expected to come with idea, or yeah?
Yeah, he knows that he's expected to come to ideas with the cost. Usually, though, most of the ideas still come from me. Kind of like, hey, this is an area where I feel like we could use some improvement. Can you go research? First it would be like, hey, what do you think about that? Because
Yeah.
I'm not doing the tasks every day, and so they have that expertise in the task. So I might start there, and then if they say, yeah, well then I might, initiate some sort of like project where we could, do some things in order to seek out some lower costs
Mm.
in that area. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. One thing that I've seen that works very well, like to generate ideas, now we're not talking about costs anymore, like in general, is instead of you asking them like how can we do to lower costs, to find new products or whatever, is to ask it, if you were me. That's something that I've really seen. Like I had this experience. I was in this car manufacturing plant, and there was this painting, the responsible of the painting line, and the operation managers of the factory asked him, what do you think we can do to make painting process more efficient? And the guy answered like, oh, it's already like quite efficient. I don't have any ideas, many ideas. And then I asked him, if you became the operations manager, what would you do to make paint? And the guy actually talked for 9 minutes, and I chronometered that. That was like, yeah. So also because like, if you put the question this way, like, what would you do if you were me? You kind of somehow remove some boundaries that the person could impose on his own answer and on what he thinks. Yeah. Then another question that I would have is, do you have any like stakeholder external from the company that knows your company quite well? Like, except from your mentor, maybe. Like some, okay, I will turn it the other way around. What are your competitors afraid that you could do over the next year?
I mean, I don't know how
Like,
how revealing these answers are going to be, but sue them in some
yeah,
cases, lower prices
yeah.
in some cases, um,
What?
collude with my suppliers in order
Hmm,
to box them out, that type of thing.
yeah. And what do you think they would wish that you do more?
To benefit them,
Yeah.
probably launch more products rather than focus on our big winners would
Hmm.
probably be what they would want us to do.
Is there what's the activity that you do for your company that gives you the most, let's call it like dopamine rush?
Gives me the most what?
Dopamine that makes you feel like super energized and
Most likely, like overlap between strategy and creative.
mm,
I like that. So I don't like, for me, product development is, I find it to be kind of too detail oriented for me.
yeah,
I mean, it's cool. It's really satisfying when it can come out with a new product that like benefits our customers.
yeah,
But I really get excited and happy when I figured out a way to kind of like completely modify our business models such that we can do something new that
mm,
like benefits our customers and at the same time also creates a competitive advantage.
yeah,
That's what I really like.
yeah. Is there some other person in your company that has the same task?
No. Yeah, no way.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was just asking this because like a lot of time there is a problem when the CEO is very excited at a task which is someone else's, and
Yeah.
and a lot of times it gets a big problem. Another question that I have is like, how do you spend your days? Yeah, like your working hours, or I mean, not that you have necessarily working hours, but I mean, when you're doing work stuff, what are you doing?
So it depends a little bit by the day of the week. So my like 5 days, we kind of have a schedule. On Monday, more time is dedicated towards answering emails because I usually have like a weekend's worth of email. Certain days are dedicated towards checking up on our projects, making sure that those are moving. And then other days have like long blocks of free time.
Uh, how do you look for like? problems? How do you spot, how is problem spotted?
Um, so tomorrow I'm going to the warehouse and I'm going to do a walk, right? I'm going to
Yeah.
walk all the way through the warehouse and stuff like that. That's one of the ways I spot problems. Um, Looking at data is another way. A third way would be like kind of taking the perspective of my customer and just looking at the products we sell and being
Mm.
like, is something wrong here? Something not wrong here? So like, for example, we'll look at our products as they're sold on Amazon or whatever, and we'll see whether or not they're selling well, or like if something seems wrong, like, I as the customer, I don't know if I would like the way that this is presented.
Yeah.
Uh, One of the questions I did have for you is that I'd really love to be able to do like one of those like walks um, through my employees' home offices, but I can't. And it's really frustrating for me because I just feel like sometimes there's enormous low-hanging fruit in that.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been like also like for me like trying to understand how some things can be implemented or like checked during this like working from home. And I have to be honest that some things are necessarily like cannot really be done, like some things.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm still like not clear on what's the impact on it. Also because like to be honest, I've seen like so many lot of like working situation in person and not so many working from home. Yeah. I guess that I will have to come back to you on this because like I honestly didn't think too much about this very thing.
I thought of one thing
Hmm.
that after reading your book, I thought I was like, oh, that's a good way to do it. So in our project management software, there's like dead space. And I was thinking about making that dead space into signs that like drill home the culture or the objectives of that particular area of our project management software. So it's just taking like a physical thing and then just turning it digital.
Yeah, that could be an idea. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. We'll see if it works.
No, yeah, no. That's a very good idea. Because yeah, and yeah, indeed, you can use the software for like reproduce parts of the physical. Yeah, very good idea. Yes, yes. Another thing is, how do you know, like, how do you discover bottlenecks? Which I mean, like points in which things could be better? Like, how do you know when things could be better than they are?
Combination of feel and observation. That's feel, observation, and customer feedback.
Mm,
Those are really, those are my big ones.
yeah. How do your employees have this like a skill or a process or like even just an awareness of their own bottlenecks that they might have?
Some do, some don't. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depends on the area and stuff like that.
No. Is there any company or that you're using as like kind of benchmark to know? Hmm, yeah. How do you like how do you have like any like team meeting or like where you all like video call at the same time or anything like this?
To be honest, no. What we do is we just meet up in person regularly.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're meeting in person also, and
Yeah, but we're not doing it like that often, right? So it's like every 1.5 to 2 months, we're spending a couple of days together and we'll do meetings then. But we're not doing too many like Occasionally we're doing Zoom. Okay, that's not true. We do Zoom meetings when for like a particular task, but there's not necessarily like, oh, it's Tuesday at 2 p.m. It's time to do our weekly Zoom meeting. I mean, perhaps we should be doing that, but right now we're not.
Mm. And when you do these like meetings, like apart from specific tasks, like I don't know, launching new products or new system, what do you talk about apart from that?
It's usually like announcement oriented or it's about a particular task. It's rare that we just do a meeting. Be like, hey,
Yeah.
we're doing a meeting. I don't know.
Okay. And then like how do do your employees like know what each other is doing? Uh,
Sometimes
hmm,
it depends.
yeah.
I mean, there is no non like if they want to know what someone else is doing, they need to ask
Mm,
or they need to like actually make some sort of effort
yeah.
to like for example check out an area of their project management software that they're not personally responsible for.
Yeah.
And other than that, the only thing that they know, kind of like what's going on, would be like our Slack, right?
Yeah.
So we're sharing information. Hey, this is happening. This is happening. Stuff like that. But there isn't that. That's like kind of like more change oriented than it is like, hey, this is the project I'm working on type thing.
Yeah. Because the reason I'm asking this is I do not know like whether it applies or not to your company. But one
Mhm.
thing that I've noticed is that when there is a partial awareness only of what other people are doing, like you kind of know their role, and you hear about some of the tasks that they're doing, but not all. There might be a risk people do not know how much the others are contributing, and they feel like that's one of the places where motivation drains. And I
How
don't
do
know whether
you?
it applies. Yeah.
I was. How do you balance that with? So I have that issue myself sometimes, right? So one of the things I learned in your book is kind of how to manage your employees for results as opposed to kind of rewarding how it's important to reward your employees for results as opposed to effort. Because
Mm,
if you're constantly rewarding them for effort, then you end up with a bunch of people who spend more time and energy showing that they're working hard as opposed to achieving results. But kind of like the flip side for me personally, like I'm getting a lot of stuff done all the time and I'm working pretty hard, but I'm not sure how often it just seems a bit fake for me to be like, hey, I got this done. Hey, I got this done. Hey, I'm working on this. I'm working on
yeah.
that. But perhaps it's not.
No, no,
It's just,
like,
yeah.
yeah, no, I didn't mean like, sorry, I didn't mean like about like tasks which are done, as in like a log of what's done. More like what are the areas of responsibility? What I mean is that you might have the impression that one person is responsible for only doing, like, I don't know, like I make a very exaggerated example, the idea that the accounting guy is only responsible for filing tax returns.
Right.
And instead, he's responsible for doing this, and that.
So is like the solution to that problem, like really, is the solution to that problem really fleshing out the organizational chart of the company to make it clear in terms of all the different things that that person is doing? Or is the solution to that problem more team communication so that people know that that guy right now is working on this thing that isn't taxes, it's something else?
Well, in larger organizations, I would say like some kind of organizational chart in which in which there is kind of like a list of like, how can I call them, like objectives for which they're accountable, like for which they're responsible. For example, like he's responsible for doing this, and that. In smaller organizations, I think it's also possible to just do it like the next time that you have a meeting with everyone, just to like saying it and not saying like, I'm telling you so that you know that everyone is working on a lot of things, but to frame it as in like, just want to know like that everyone knows what everyone else is working on, so that you have an idea of like also just what to ask, what inputs they require, and so on. I'm saying this because there might be there are in some cases, again, I don't know if it applies to you, but there are cases in which there is an impression that you are doing things that actually other people are doing, or that no one is doing things that actually people are doing. And the problem is that you want to have some balance between the perception that one has of how many things he's responsible for and how many things other people are responsible for. Also because of a question of like, if you know that this person is responsible for, I'm giving an like random idea, like if you know that this person is responsible for like coming out with advertisements and copy text and so on, and I have an idea, I can also like send him a short email with an idea, or I can tell him next time that I meet. But if I'm not sure, then you're basically cutting off like the less clarity there is, the less you're cutting off the surfaces in which there might be a DS exchange, and the more you're adding gray areas in which the motivated employees can see things which do not exist. Like they can see things as in like, today Mike gave me like a lot of tasks, but I know that this other person is only responsible for one thing. Like I don't know if it happens or not, but I know that it happens in some companies. So
yeah, for sure it happens. Yeah, it definitely. Okay. So if I'm understanding you correctly, there are two separate things here that are important. The first thing is the importance of communicating what people are working on for the sense of fairness.
Yes.
Right? Like that person has 11 tasks and is going to have to work 80 hours this week. That person has one and is going to spend 4 hours this week working. That's obviously a problem. And you can kind of solve that by everyone kind of communicating openly what they're working on. The second thing, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that like open communication just leads to better formulation of new ideas, more cooperation and teamwork, right?
Yes.
Like I know that he's working on that thing. Something that I'm working on right now overlaps with what he's working on. So I can go to him and talk to him about it in a way that will allow me to do my job better. That's how you think?
Yes, especially the first one, because the second one can happen in some companies, cannot happen in other companies, depends on a lot of things, like if there is any overlap or not, on the personality of the very employees. So I'm definitely not saying that if you do it, then suddenly you will have a boom of ideas, because
yeah,
that's totally unrealistic. Like it depends on a lot of factors. But the first part, the part about fairness, I think that's really more like consistent. Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Right. Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Like if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, like if work gets done and no one else knows about it, it's like it never happened at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this is like a really big point on which I think it's worth spending time, is making sure that everyone has the impression that he's treated fairly, and that everyone is treated fairly. And
Right.
yeah. But talking about this, like, what are other things that are what, like, for example, in the book, and you think that they don't make sense, or that you think like no clue about it, or
Well, okay. So my first question is, the book, I think wisely spends a lot of time talking about the importance of clarity in kind of the assignment of objectives, right?
yeah.
I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about whether or not you think every single task needs a deadline. Right, that's like part of being clear, I think, right? Like when something needs to be finished by.
Yes. Well, I think that the answer is like you need to give a deadline whenever like one, either it's important, like it's really important, or when you will judge by the deadline, because it's
Like
like
if it's urgent or if it's important.
I mean, like I think that the criteria for you would be like, let's say that in 1 month the task is still not done. How will you react? And if the answer is badly, then you definitely need to put the deadline. If the task
Okay.
is like, I will just remind him, then you probably do not need to do it. No,
I like that.
no,
That makes a lot of sense.
no. And that's basically the framework for like all other, like, is it necessary questions? Like, yeah,
I'm just gonna cycle through my.
yes,
I really liked the story of DuPont putting his family in the gunpowder factory.
oh yeah, that's
That's fantastic.
yeah, I really like people that put skin in the game. Yeah, and that's also one of the things that for which I really like respect what you're doing, because you're definitely one
Uh,
of the people that I know, like, yeah, that are putting the most skin in the game. Yeah.
I try. Uh, question for you. Um, does every employee need to have some portion of their salary as a bonus in order for them to feel downside and upside?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Like,
Talk about that. Yeah.
I like, I've been, I've seen like a lot of companies that have absolutely no bonus portion, and I've seen very motivated employees, and I've seen companies which have bonuses and very demotivated employees. And by demotivated, I mean either like they come into the office and they do not want to work, or demotivated as in they do not do things that are good for the companies, but they're motivated for things that are good for their bonus. So I really don't think that bonuses are needed. What is needed for motivation is, in my opinion, fairness. So the idea that like when people add value, they are made felt like they've been adding value. And then for a lot of people, I'm not saying like the thank you, like the sincere thank you is enough. I'm definitely not saying it as in like, oh, that's great because we save also a lot of money. That's really not the point. But the thing is that like I've seen a lot of people that get bonuses and then they leave the company nevertheless after a couple of years.
Right.
And on the other side, I've seen people that have never gotten a bonus and still they're very motivated. So I think that that's much more like about creating like the personal rapport, and the personal rapport as in I see what you're doing, and yeah, and I'm telling you, and people know it. And then of course there are some limits to this, because like if the company grows up like 100 times, and they've been like one of the first 4 employees, and they've been like working there for years, then of course there would be also some expectations to get a bit of the windfall. But I definitely do not think that bonuses are like a necessary part of the salary. Yeah.
So what are the, fortunately in America, we don't have European firing laws. Um,
Yeah.
but besides firing, what are the most effective ways to basically demonstrate fairness to someone who doesn't do a good job and also to everyone else who saw that besides firing them?
I think that it's not let them pass when they bullshit. So not let the bullshit pass. So like let's say that you give them a task
Yeah,
which is somehow visible in the company, which means that
right.
like then of course like it goes also to the personality of the employees. But what I've seen is that a lot of times if an employee thinks that there is an underperformer in the team and he sees that the boss knows that this person is underperforming and he sees that the boss is telling him like we have standards and like that's not good enough, or like I know that you're coming to me with excuses, or like usually that's kind of not bad, not necessarily bad for the rest of the team. Which I mean, the problems
Yeah,
they, and also for the person, because like if the person sees that you keep calling off his bad performance, there is still some kind of respect, and there is still some kind of like fairness and choice and possibility for him to change. And like there are a lot of like the dynamics becomes much better than if instead there is like white flag. I accept that this guy is underperforming and I accept his excuses, and that's what then becomes a really like motivational loss for the rest of the team,
right.
and also for this person, because like then he loses some
Yeah.
sense
Why
of
would they,
worth. And why
why make an effort if the
yeah
boss is like,
exactly
give up?
yeah exactly yeah
Well, okay. So here's an interesting question, right? So let's say you're in a group meeting. You have 4 or 5 people in that group meeting, and one person they fucked up or whatever, and then they're bullshitting you, right? So on the one hand, you have the principle praise in public, criticize in private, but on the flip side, like, yeah, so you have that principle, praise in public, criticize in private, but if you don't acknowledge, if you don't give a sense to the other employees that you know that that person is bullshitting, it's demotivational.
yeah okay so here I will first
Like,
I
how do
will,
you balance those two things, right?
yeah
You
yeah
do,
no so first I will tell you like the textbook answer, and then I will tell you like what's more likely to happen. So the textbook no, because it's true, it's like
no, no,
so the textbook answer would be like hint that you see that there is bullshit, and uh, give him a way to save face. So in which he can say that, oh, I didn't consider that, something like this, and so that on the other, on one side, they see that bullshit is not accepted, and on the other side, the employee
yeah,
doesn't feel like you humiliate. So that would be the
but yeah,
yeah. Then there are a lot of big buts, and so one thing is that it's extremely difficult to do it, and the second thing is that there is still a risk that that he feels humiliated and whatnot.
right. He still feels there's a pretty good chance that he'll still feel the resentment because in order for you to hint,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
going to be obvious to him. And if anyone's going to know that you're hinting, it's going to be him because he's the person who's most likely to know that he did a shitty job.
Exactly. So my real world advice would be
Crucify him.
go to would be to go to him after the meeting ends, or like when there is a break or whatnot, and have a honest conversation with him on like saying that there were things that went wrong. And on one side, you can let it pass his excuses or like his justifications or like acknowledge them, but each of them make sure that you ask him like, so what are you gonna do so that next time it's not gonna happen anymore somehow.
But isn't that still demotivational? Because I'm talking about to the other employees. It's kind
Well,
of
the thing,
interesting.
yeah, well, the thing is that, yeah, the thing that there is necessarily a trade-off. I think
It's
that
weird.
like,
Like in a way, maybe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I usually do the textbook method, right? Like I let them save face and then I actually do what you're talking about. So if I see something like that, I'll let them save face publicly and then I'll set up a meeting with them to make it abundantly clear to them that, that was not acceptable. And while I was like letting it go in the meeting, like I thought it was pretty bad. But is that, I mean, maybe that's demotivational to all the other employees.
well, I think I'm just trying to come up with the exact words that I have. So the thing is, it's the it's the motivational if you, because there is the problem that he still didn't achieve the task, right?
Right.
So one thing is about the excuse, like accepting that, like the justification that he's bringing, and the other thing is accepting the result that he's bringing. And I think that then, of course, it's all a trade-off, and you do not have like perfect answers. You can, for once, like, of course, it's a huge problem if it becomes chronic. So like every time, every meeting, there is someone coming like this. But if it's something like very spotted, then I think that you can somehow like accept the justification, but
Right.
not accept the result. And in that way, you kind of like the other people, they still like see that like results are judged for the results.
Right.
But because you accepted his, or not necessarily accepted, but did not publicly deny his justifications, he still sort of like somehow do not lose too much the motivation, or at least, yeah. Then of course, like it depends like on the personality of the people involved. Like, is it a serial bullshitter, or is it, or did he like screw up big time this time? Yeah.
So as a manager, it sounds like it's enormously important. You almost need to, as a manager, it is enormously important for you to really sort out what the root cause of a failure if results are not achieved. Because on the one hand, you want to be results oriented. Did it happen or did it not? But then on the other hand, you want to be fair, right? And
Yeah.
occasionally it does happen that good employees have bad results as a result of external circumstances,
Yeah.
right? Kind of like anyone who owns a restaurant in 2020. Like, it could be a good restaurateur, but things just happen sometimes.
Yeah. I think that part of this is like that there are a lot of entrepreneurs, like serial entrepreneurs, also you, that they're successful at almost all their ventures, but they still have failures here and then. And the thing
Yeah.
is that, for example, like what happens is that you miss a product launch. Like one of the 5 products that you do is a complete failure.
Yeah.
But the venture still keep succeeding, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons is because like it's kind of similar to the fact that like the concept of anti-fragility. Like
Mm-hmm.
if an entity is made of like multiple components, the failure of some of the components make it a success for the bigger entity because there is some learning, and also because some failures are part of it. So back to the point that we were saying, you can still have a thing where you say like you will be judged on outputs, but also say like, given the nature of your job, it's impossible that you get 100% success rate.
Right.
But I will still judge you on the output. And the time that you fail does not necessarily mean that you're a bad employee, but it means that the time you failed at the task. And like, that's kind of a message that that's kind of a story that, I don't mean story as in made up story, I mean story as in like narrative that passes the idea that makes compatible the idea of always judge on results, and I know that shit happens, and
Right.
and you do have some level of control, but you do not have 100% level of control. Yeah.
Sounds like you want to be short-term reasonable, long-term rigorously results-oriented. You know, I mean, maybe I'm kind of like simplifying things to the point of making it trivial, but like if you have someone who consistently, you know, oh, COVID happened, oh, something else happened, a plane crashed, oh, that wasn't my fault, you know, then, you know, people only get so unlucky in life.
Yeah.
I have more questions, but like it's it's literally Monday for you, so I don't want to.
No.
I want to keep going.
If you want to keep going, yeah, totally.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
One of the thoughts I had was that so bad employees create kind of a toxic negative atmosphere, not just for themselves, but for the people around them. And so in that respect, you really want to address that as quickly and as fast as you can. But on the flip side, your best employees, like the more effort you put into them, kind of like the better results you get, right? So there's like a tension there, and I wasn't quite sure how to solve it. And, you know, this sounds crude, but obviously you give everyone a chance. But if you have a bad employee, especially in America where it's easier to fire people, maybe the solution there is to just be like, moving on. I fire them.
Yeah. I think that there are two solutions on this. Like the first one is like fire, find a new one, and also because it's impossible to get like 100% success rate with hiring.
Right.
So there will be definitely a lot of cases in which you will have to fire and find a new one. And honestly, I like if the person knows about it, like that, if they know that the performance is warranting being fired, then I don't think that. Like I think that it's okay. The other possibility that you have is that you accept that employee right now is not performing at the level that he's supposed to. And somehow I'm trying to find the good words to put it, like everyone knows it. But this is applicable if it's not that there are bad employees, like they're screwing stuff around, but like that there is a limited set of tasks that they're doing and they can do it at good but not up to standard level of performance. And then in this case, like one option possibly is like to keep them in, to try to work them up performance little by little, but most importantly, like making sure that they are not treated, that they are treated fairly for what they're doing.
Right.
Not for what they are expected to do and failing to meet.
Right.
Because I've seen like a lot of offices in which it was clear that there was like one or two team members which were underperforming. Yeah. But like if everyone knows it and they are treated accordingly. So for example, they do not get like the exciting new projects. They're not asked to participate to some improvement. They do not get raises and so on. Then it's not necessarily bad.
It's not ideal, but it's sort of acceptable.
Yes, and then of course, then it also goes like to the spectrum of like how easy it is to fire, and moral issues and so on and so forth. Yeah, but I think that the thing to avoid is to keeping in a bad performer treated as yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Right. Because one, it's unfair, and then it spills over, and then where's the incentive to be a good performer if the bad performer gets good treatment?
Yeah.
It's straightforward.
And honestly, if they are below 35 years old, unless they have a very difficult family situation or whatnot, it's also unfair to them. Because they could like maybe move on, go to somewhere else and find a better fit or a better job. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I have a lot of bookmarks. Not everything is something that I have a question about, you know? So I like putting I'm just looking at stuff I like here. Performance, feedback, overcompensating. Yeah. I think this is a good one. Overcompensating an employee who received another job offer as a source of management debt. That's good.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I like it in particular is because I've never heard someone say that creates management debt, but it makes total sense that it would.
Yeah. Not always, because like just want to go on this, like sometimes like it's a debt, it's not necessarily a loss, which means that if then you overpay him and you give like a lot of additional responsibilities and raise the bar and so on, you can somehow save the
repay the debt.
yeah, exactly, and save the situation and put everything on par. But
it does become a loss though if other people find out.
Correct. Yeah.
And
yeah.
if
Exactly.
you don't do that, right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
if you don't raise the bar in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. That's a really good distinction. All right, I'm just going to focus on things that I have questions about or things that I think were particularly interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. I really needed an actual book. This was like actually a nightmare to read. Like, because sometimes like the binding of the book kind of made it really hard to like read the first letter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm getting the book, so that's good.
By the way, did you receive them? They should have arrived on Friday, I think.
Did I receive what?
The copies that I shipped to your address.
Maybe it's in my mailbox. I haven't checked. I don't know, man. I'm worried that I don't have questions, and I've got a lot more bookmarks, so maybe we should just leave it there. This was cool.
Okay. Yeah. Also for me, like, also learning like a lot all the time. Yeah.
I think I'm probably the smallest company that you've consulted with. I get that feeling. Is that right?
Employees, yes, I think so. Yeah.
Maybe by a factor of 100.
No, I think that the smallest one was 25.
Okay, yeah, it's that's one of the really unfortunate things about business. Whenever you kind of like scale up, it requires like a whole new skill set, a whole new way of thinking. I can see that even going from like 1 to 5. From 1 to 2 is totally different. 2 is different from 1. 5 is different from 2. I can't even imagine what it's like to have like 100,000 employees. That must be insane.
Honestly, yeah. I don't know. I think it really depends. Like you get better. Like the thing is, like you cannot get like the same things also at the scale. Like necessarily, you will lose some things, you will gain other things. It's a bit like saying like you cannot have a basketball player who is both like 2 meters 30 and can dribble like very well. I mean, in theory you can, but there will be necessarily trade-offs. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you get the advantages of scale with having a large company, but then productivity per employee as you grow tends to go down. So trade-offs, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, my dude. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I learned a tremendous amount, not just from reading your book, well, you have books, but also from doing this consultation. So thank
Yeah,
you for that,
you as
Luca.
well, and I'm learning like so much like from your Twitter feed as well. Like I was really excited to have this call because like you're one of the accounts that I followed that I find the most interesting, and you're actually putting everything in like you're there yourself. You're not just writing stuff. And yeah,
I don't have an assistant who writes tweets for me, that's for sure. Maybe when I scale up to 100,000 employees, I'll get one of those. I mean, right back at you, man. I really enjoy following your Twitter feed. It's cool. It was cool to read a book that I had seen on Twitter before. You know, it's like, it's one of the most salient tweets I. It was really cool to read the story about how DuPont put his family in the gunpowder factory. To see that on Twitter, and then I'm reading the book and be like, oh.
yes, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Later, Luca.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.